Welcome. I'd like to call to order the Clarkston Independence District Library Board of Trustees meeting for May 11th. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:31. If Julie will please call the roll.
Dan Gaffney.
Here.
Dan Green.
Here.
Allison McFadden-Kiesling.
Here.
Nancy Moon.
Yes.
Marilyn Pomeroy.
Here.
Ann Rose.
Here.
Christy Shull.
Yes.
And Julie Meredith here.
Okay. I'll accept an approval for remote participation of board members.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the remote participation of Jan Gaffney, Daniel Green, Allison McFadden-Kiesling, Nancy Moon, Marilyn Pomeroy, Ann Rose, and Christy Shull.
Dan Gaffney.
Please take the roll.
Oh, sorry. Jan Gaffney.
Yes.
Dan Green.
Yes.
Allison McFadden-Kiesling.
Yes.
Nancy Moon.
Yes.
Marilyn Pomeroy.
Yes.
Ann Rose.
Yep.
And Chris Shull.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. I'll accept now a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I move to approve the agenda.
Dan
Okay.
was first and second.
We got it?
Yep.
All right, let's call the roll.
Dan Gaffney.
Yes.
Dan Green.
Yes.
Allison McFadden-Kiesling.
Yes.
Nancy Moon.
Yes.
Marilyn Pomeroy.
Yes.
Ann Rose.
Yes.
And Christy Shull.
Yes.
Okay. At this time, we'll have call to the public. If there is anyone who wants to participate tonight.
See any public? I just see us. Tim, do you have anything to say? Nope.
No, I'm good. Thank you, though.
Okay. He's the only public we have. Debbie, do
Well,
you have?
And I muted myself. So.
in that case, we will close the call to the public. And I will now accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I
I'll
second.
second. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, who's second? Nancy? Nancy.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
There are 6 items on the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to discuss any of those individually? No? If
No.
not, let's call the roll to approve the agenda.
Dan Gaffney.
Yes.
Dan Green.
Yes.
Allison McFadden-Kiesling.
Yes.
Nancy Moon.
Yes.
Marilyn Pomeroy.
Yes?
Ann Rose.
Yes.
And Christy Shull.
Yes.
Okay. The motion is approved. Do you have any comments on statistics for this meeting?
We do actually. I have a couple things I wanted to point out. It's a little sad looking because obviously there's been nobody in the building, so no visitors, no circulations, no computer users. However, we had 6,796 downloads and 490 wireless users,
Wow.
which is
That's
pretty
very
exciting.
good.
Yeah.
That is good.
That
We
means the
also,
word got out and people know what we have available. So that's
that we
good.
are there, absolutely.
Yeah.
The children's programs, there were 781 live participants in the Facebook story times and all the various activities they've been doing. But Bill wanted me to let you know, according to Library of Michigan Counting, you're supposed to count the live participants, but you can go back and then also see how many people there were who attended by watching the recording after the fact. And so total, including the 781, there were 2,885.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that was really exciting. So that was good news.
Yeah.
And also on the second page of the statistics, while many other things are down quite a lot, obviously information questions and visitors and all of that, but downloads are up 37%.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So people are finding those services and they are using them, which is good.
Good.
Well, I noticed that the senior center is advertising the services also.
Yes, and the school district is as well. So they've been very helpful in making sure that our word is getting out there.
And I know Tom Stone has been spreading the word too.
Yes, through his focus group. Yep,
Yeah,
Well,
he's done a nice job with that as well.
yes.
excellent.
I sent him a little note thanking him for that.
Oh, thank you.
Every time he sends something library related, I always say thank you. I always email back because I'm on his focus group list. So,
Very
and we
good.
don't necessarily ask him. He just does that. If we send something his way that he sees that he thinks is interesting, he pops it out there, which is nice.
He does that with a lot of other things too. He's been spreading a lot of things for the senior center, and he's been even various museums and stuff around. He's been spreading quite a
Absolutely.
bit of information, which is
He
nice.
is. He's good about doing that. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's always good to have someone on top of everything.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, Julie, let's have the library director's report.
Okay. It looks somewhat similar to last month because my job is very odd being stuck in my guest room at home. But so basically the things I've been doing, I've been managing the administrative maintenance of the library, the majority of which is now being done remotely. Last month I was doing some at home and some at work, but primarily I'm working remotely now. I've been obviously working with Arlene and we're troubleshooting any building issues as needed. I've been monitoring the executive orders, assuring that we're in compliance with all of the guidelines. I do meet remotely each week with the department heads. I meet remotely each week with the PR staff. I also conducted another remote all-staff meeting, and we're starting to do that every other week via Zoom. I've been attending weekly remote meetings from the Michigan Library Directors held by the state librarian. Also checking in on CIDL virtual programs and services and providing staff with positive feedback. I've been attending remote meetings, webinars, reviewing best practice documents and such from the CDC, the Library of Michigan, IMLS, OSHA, lots of really gripping reading to prepare for the eventual reopening of the library. And I've been working on developing a strategy and a service plan for the reopening of the library when the time comes. I am coordinating the remote meeting with the Friends Board and developing the daily work from home training emails to prepare the staff with the needed information to function safely in the library environment when we are able to go back to work in the building, and also preparing the building for phase one. So Arlene and I have been doing purchasing supplies and selecting signage. I've been working with the department heads to develop needed procedures and that sort of thing. So.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
I have a comment, as always. I just wanted to say thank you for sharing those daily emails that you're sending to the staff for the training. That it's nice to know what's going on a daily
Yes.
basis.
Yeah.
Yes.
Washing your hands, very nice.
Yes.
Yes.
I had
Well,
that
it was-
mastered already, but some of the other information is
Well, it's interesting because when the governor's last executive order came out, it had some specific guidelines about what the staff needs to know or what employees need to know when they come back to work. And I thought, we could spend a lot of time, a big long meeting training via Zoom, or I could send out a little something every day and give people bite size. So it's just a 5 to 10 minute commitment on whatever COVID training. And I have a whole list and we do those on a daily basis. So hopefully by the time it is appropriate for us to go back to the library, then we can just do a review and it won't be quite so intense.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah.
A lot of heavy information. So it's nice to be able to break it up.
Okay, are we ready for regular business? If we are, let's start with the first quarter financial review.
Okay, so the accountant did provide us with our first quarter financial statement. We are in pretty good shape. It always looks like this at the first quarter because there's property taxes that haven't come in completely yet. State aid obviously hasn't completely come in yet. Library fines and fees, we have been waiving fines at this point, and we are down in terms of fees because we don't have any room rentals going on. So those particular line items, obviously, we're going to have to make some adjustments there and think about what we're going to do about those things. Penal fines, we always budget low because we never know what that's going to look like. Since penal fines are based entirely on traffic tickets and court costs and things like that, it's not reliable income. It just depends on how many things people do and what they have to pay for and that sort of thing. Obviously, there's not a lot of traffic tickets and things like that going on right now. So this is why we always budget it low, because we just never know what it's going to be like. And I think it's going to be a low number this year. And then obviously duplicating and photocopying is another thing that's going to be down. Obviously, we can't do that at this time as well. We are continuing to pay the employees both full-time and part-time. We have everybody working from home. We have a few people that are working in the library that are essential, that need to be working in the library, but they're doing that very sporadically. We just have people in there from time to time. But in terms of wages, we did have budgeted for an additional full-time employee, which we have not filled that slot yet. That would be our school liaison librarian. And because school is not in session and we can't do any kind of interviewing or hiring at this point, I think if we leave that position vacant, we should be okay there. That's a little extra money that we can use to make up for some of these losses. We also had a part-time children's librarian who left that we did not replace because we were going to go down an additional employee when we did the full-time position. So we have a vacant position that we had not filled, and then we have a part-time position that we were going to leave vacant. So there's 2 vacancies there. And then we had a part-time adult services librarian who left that we had just posted for, and I'm not even sure if Evan got to the point where he was doing the interviewing or not. So we are down a part-time adult services librarian as well. So those positions being vacant are putting an ease on the budget as well. So that will hopefully be helpful in the end. Some of the lines are going to seem a little bit off. Obviously, this goes through March, but then going forward, we haven't done, obviously we're not doing book purchasing because the books can't be delivered to the building because we can't accept deliveries. So this first quarter in terms of budget spending books and such is probably about normal, but since we did close in the middle of March, it might be a little bit lower. But then going forward, we're not doing any book ordering at this time because we can't have things delivered. And then in terms of programming, we've done obviously we're doing virtual programming and things like that, and we purchased some items, but some of the presenters and performers that we were intending to have, we haven't had those. So we're going to see some budgetary money that will still be sitting there as well. What Tracy is doing in terms of programming for summer reading is reaching out to some of those performers who are going to be doing presentations and seeing if they can do something virtually. What we're hearing is that a lot of these performers who will do virtual programs, it tends to cost about half what it would to have a live performance. So there will be some savings there as well, but we would still be able to do some interesting dynamic things online for people, which is cool.
Now, so are those on YouTube or what?
Well, so what we would do in that case, and we do have a couple of performers for summer who are right on top of it and said, I'm going to be doing virtual programming. Do you still want me? And the answer was a resounding yes. What we've been doing is recording them and putting them on Facebook Live. So you can see them on Facebook. You don't actually have to have a Facebook account in order to watch them. Most of these performers and presenters only will let you show it once or maybe leave the recording up for a very short period of time. They might let you leave it up for 24 or 48 hours, but then they want you to pull it down because obviously if they leave it up, then they can't sell it again.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
So, so that's kind of how that works.
Okay.
But we've been seeing with our virtual story times, 781 participants, and then if you include all the recordings, 2,885 participants. there is some value of being able to leave it up there for a little bit. Even with our story times, we don't leave those recordings up long term because of the copyright on the books. Publishers are being pretty generous in letting us do story times with copyrighted materials, but we're only allowed to leave them up for some short period of time.
And so you're still getting those kinds of numbers without leaving them up long term.
Yep.
So that should still work quite well then for virtual programming.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And I think our patrons are starting to get accustomed to that and seeing that that is an opportunity for them to participate in some things. So,
Good.
yeah, so we're excited about that. Anyway, first quarter, so I can't keep us on budget for the first 3 months of the year. I don't know. We're in pretty good shape. Especially when we've been closed for, anyway.
Yeah.
It seems
any
like
questions?
forever.
Yeah, yeah. Any questions about the budget at this point?
It'll be
No, I
interesting
think
to
we're
see
just
the
gonna have
next
to kind of
report.
go with it as, it's gonna become a pretty fluid document, I think, this year, because we're gonna have to shift stuff around because we'll be spending money differently.
I think so. I think we're going to see a lot of shifting toward our virtual world, that we may be moving some of that physical book money into the ebook accounts and things like that. I don't know. The department heads are still kind of working on that. At some point, hopefully we'll get into that phase 1 and we'll talk about a curbside and we'll start having materials that people can take out again and that. But
I sure hope so, because I got to the bottom of my first pile and now I'm on my secret stash.
oh dear.
Right.
Oh dear.
I know what you mean.
I still have a
Sad.
few because I had a nice secret stash, and I've been alternating. I'll read an ebook and then I'll go get a real book out of the stash. But if this goes on much longer, I'm going to be in trouble.
Now, Annette is collecting the materials that are coming in, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But
Yep, so the way that works is our book drop is not locked and closed. People can still return materials. Nothing is really due, and we're not charging any fines for anything, but people do need to get stuff out of their house if they're worried that they're going to lose it under stacks of magazines or whatever, and so people do need to be allowed to return things. We've been quarantining those materials, so she only goes in on Tuesdays and Fridays to empty the book drop. And she does check the materials in with gloves on, and she does put them away, but nothing is going back out. So the shelves are getting pretty full, but we are checking those things in. And so we're encouraging people to hang on to their materials, but if they would like to drop them off, that's fine. We will take them back and hold on to them. So.
well, when our part-timers come back in little by little, they'll be shelving jobs too.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
All right. We don't really need to take a vote on our first, unless you want to vote to accept it. I'll
It's not
accept the
really
motion to
It's not
accept
necessary, but you can.
the report.
But
Anybody wanna vote to-
if you want to put it in the record that way, I'll move that we accept it as presented.
Okay. We'll have a second.
Second.
All right.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we accept the first quarter financial review. Any questions or comments? If that's the case, all those in favor will say yes by roll call.
Thank you. Jan Gaffney,
Yes.
Dan Green,
Yes.
Allison McFadden Kiesling,
Yes.
Nancy Moon,
Yes.
Marilyn Pomeroy,
Yes.
Ann Rose,
Yes,
and Christy Shaw.
yes.
Very good.
Okay, thank you. Motion is passed. Now let's have an update since the closure and the discussion of the current executive orders.
Okay, so in terms of the update, this update is the same as last month, but I added on to it, so I'm not going to go through everything up until this date. I'm just going to skip to the second page and pick up in the through 5/11/2020. So some of the things that we've been doing in terms of additional programs and services that have been added, we created a series of Explore in 4 videos, which are short instructional videos created by staff introducing patrons to services they may not have tried. Current videos include RB Digital, Hoopla, Canopy, Fantastic Fiction, Goodreads, Zoom meetings, and Tutor.com. The circulation staff ran a report of the patrons of retirement age who have checked out physical materials in 2020. And then a special email was sent out to those patrons inviting them to take a look at our e-services and providing contact information for support. And then we also made phone calls to patrons who didn't have an email address on file with us, offering them personal assistance in transitioning from physical materials to e-materials if they would like to do so. That was very well received, and I think the staff really enjoyed that task. There were about 184 calls that were made.
Wow, good.
So that was really nice to be able to do that.
I'm
We
sure that
added,
people appreciated receiving those calls too.
yes, I think so.
I think
It
a lot
was-
of older people are, particularly if they're alone, are really struggling right now, so.
Yep. And it was also an opportunity to let them know that we are still there. This is the phone number to call. If you call us, you still get a real person. You can talk to a circulation person. You can talk to a librarian. We have chat if you like to chat on your computer. We have a chat service as well, so people can reach us in a number of ways. We added Creative Bug, which is an online service of free arts and crafts classes that patrons can access using their library card. We will have an Explore and 4 video being made about that one. I think Beth is going to do that one, and she's working on that one right now. Our teen librarian did an escape room online game, so that's on the teen page of our website. That's really fun. You should go in and give it a try. I did it. It was really fun. We have a virtual Dungeons and Dragons gaming program. We also have a virtual Got Yarn program. The children's department has been doing I Spy online children's games. And they are also doing kids Dogman trivia on Instagram. Adults, we have an adult travel trivia program going on Instagram as well. The children's department is doing a program that's called Grow a Pizza, which is a gardening program. One of our children's librarians is going to, it was supposed to be a live program at the community garden. She's going to go to the community garden and record it and then put it online, and there's going to be a watch party. So that's coming up. We are also working on a virtual, we were supposed to do a World War II program, and Emily is working on that to make it a virtual program. Our presenter is willing to do that virtually, so she has the IT department helping her with that.
Great.
And we are also investigating phone-in programs for adults who are not tech savvy. So we're looking into doing that as well. And then also on Monday, May 1st, with the release of contractors to do work, some building maintenance is now taking place. Our grounds crew has done spring cleanup and grounds maintenance, and the mulch was added to the parking lot islands, which I did swing by the library earlier today to run a quick errand at the building, and the islands look great. We're also, we scheduled to have the building power washed, which is something we've never done before, but we did budget for that this year, so Arlene is making arrangements for that. All outdoor work that can be done, so we're keeping our local businesses employed and getting our building cleaned up. The interior windows were cleaned. The exterior windows will be cleaned after the power washing. Arlene had the hard floors cleaned in the building, and she's also having the carpets cleaned. And all of those things are things that are standard maintenance, and we want to make sure we're taking care of the community's investment, and all of that can be done socially distanced and with great care. So those projects are still taking place. In terms, any questions about any of those activities before I move on to executive orders?
No, that's fine.
Nope. Okay. So a review of the executive orders currently guiding library service. As you know, Executive Order 2020-59 is the one that was the temporary requirement to suspend activities that are not necessary to sustain or protect life. That was set to continue through May 15th, and that was rescinded. And it was replaced with Executive Order 2020-77, which is still called the temporary requirement to suspend activities that are not necessary to sustain and protect life. That one is supposed to continue through May 28th. The Executive Order 2020-69, which was the temporary restriction on the use of places of public accommodation, that was extended to May 28th. And then 2020-75 is the temporary authorization of remote participation in public meetings. That one is set to continue through June 30th. Now, our library does have a policy that allows for board members to participate remotely. This executive order allows for these meetings to take place remotely in terms of public participation. So even after this expires, the board, especially any of you that may be high risk or have people in your family that are high risk, you could still participate remotely, and we would just need to do a base at the library that would then have social distanced public participation. Although I have a feeling she's going to extend that.
Does that mean that we would have to participate remotely, or that we might if we choose to?
That's only that if you choose to. You you voted that you would continue using our policy that remote participation would be available to you during this. I can't remember the exact wording that we used during the situation, during the closure.
Right.
But that first meeting that we did, some were remote and some weren't.
Right.
And you could theoretically go back to doing that. So where this leaves us, which I think is we need to talk about a little bit, and we had a staff meeting on Friday, and so the staff is fully aware of this. It is this 2020-77, which is the suspension of activities are not necessary to sustain and protect life, is what is keeping the library staff at home and the building closed. The executive order for the places of public accommodation specifically calls out restaurants, casinos, movie theaters, bars, all that sort of thing. So where people gather, that also keeps the building closed. There is a stipulation in that allows for carry-out food service, but it does not allow for carry-out anything else, especially not for government entity. Retail can do it, but government entities aren't allowed to. So we are not allowed to do curbside based on Executive Order 69, the places of public accommodation. However, I did put in your packet, the Michigan Library Association did a survey of public library directors, and there were 331 responses, and they were asking us about curbside and our plans for curbside, because they felt like perhaps as these executive orders were being written, there might be a misunderstanding in terms of how we felt in terms of our ability to offer safe curbside. So of the 331 libraries that responded, 71% said yes, they were planning for a contact-free curbside as soon as we were able to do so. 23% were not sure, and 6% said no, they were not going to be able to. In the comment section, you could say why, and MLA did point out that 6%, most of those 6%, it was more to do with issues with the building and it not being a possibility because of parking and other issues, as opposed to a fear of not being able to do a contact-free, safe curbside service. And it just was something that wouldn't work for their building. So the next thing that they asked was how quickly these library directors felt that they could implement this. Some said immediately, so 15% said immediately. 55% said after May 15th, which was when that order was supposed to expire, and then they extended it. And then 30% said at a later date, which basically meant they were working on it, but they weren't quite ready to commit yet. And then lastly, they asked what would make you feel safe in being able to do that. And the number one thing that people thought would make them feel safe, 46% said that they would need PPE, personal protective equipment in place, masks and other types of protections. 16% said that guidance and protocols from government agencies. 16% said social distancing. 5% said they already felt safe doing what they were doing or what they wanted to do. 2% said that they felt that we needed testing and contact tracing in order to be able to do that. And then 6% were no response and 9% were other. In that particular situation, you could, they wanted to know the most important thing that would make you feel safe. And most people did say that it was that personal protective equipment. So any questions about that information from the Michigan Library Association? So from that information, MLA is going to be advocating on libraries' behalf to make sure that the state, as they are releasing these future executive orders, take into consideration our feelings about our ability and the situation that we're in to be able to offer a safe curbside, contact-free curbside service. So that's that.
Okay, any questions about that? Do we feel that we're relatively ready to do that when we get the okay?
I believe we are, and in the next portion,
We'll discuss that.
It's in the packet.
Okay.
I don't remember which item number it's under, but yeah, we're going to talk about it a little bit more.
Well, we're ready for number 3, discussion of
Okay.
the draft of the phrases.
Okay, so the draft that I'm going to present to you, this is a draft document, and it's simply an outline of how library service may begin to return to some sort of normal. The situation continues to evolve, and every day we learn new things about the virus and best practices to keep people safe. We will proceed with caution and only at a pace that allows us to protect our staff and community members. We are currently at the stay home, stay safe phase, and we're planning for phase 1. And we believe that as we execute phase 1, we will be able to better understand and prepare for phase 2. As we begin to move forward, future versions of the document will more thoroughly address those phases. In addition, I've provided a spreadsheet listing many of the necessary details and decisions in order to be able to track and prepare for those future phases as well, so that we can kind of see how each phase is different from the one that came before it. And both documents are a work in progress, but they are both in your packet. So the first thing is that phases of library service. The stay home, stay safe phase is defined by the library being closed to the public. Staff is working from home. Only essential work is taking place at the library. Services include phone, chat, online and virtual programming. Book return is available, but due dates are extended and fines are waived. So phase 1 is kind of our return to work phase, where we try to get the staff back in the building. Staff whose tasks must take place in the library would return to work first. Some staff would still work from home, and that would reduce the number of people in the building so that we can maximize social distancing. Services would still include phone, chat, online, and virtual programming. The book return would be available, but due dates would be extended and fines would be waived, and contact-free curbside library material pickup would be added when allowed. So that's the phase that we're really starting to define and clarify. So phase 2 would be the full staff returns. So the full staff returns to work. Some very limited public access may be available, such as computer use by appointment or notary, test proctoring, printing, copying, but we still wouldn't be looking at people just coming into the building to browse and hang out and sit at tables and that sort of thing. Phase 3 would be limited public service. Patrons may enter the building, but the building occupancy may be monitored and controlled. Some areas of the building may not be available. Some small gatherings and meetings may be permitted with appropriate social distancing. And then final would be phase 4, full service. Full library service would return, but some pandemic mitigation procedures may still be in place. So much of this has to do with what we're hearing from the CDC, what we're hearing from the World Health Organization, what's going on in other countries, what our own state requires for us. It also includes Oakland County Health Department. So we're getting a lot of executive orders and requirements coming from all different directions, which is why I feel like it's so important in this particular situation to focus on phase 1, which is just being able to get some staff back in the building so we can function a little bit more smoothly. So I attended a meeting of directors that are the libraries that are closest to us. So Orion and Brandon and Romeo and Oxford and some of our neighboring libraries. And a lot of them are really talking in depth about some of these phases 2, 3, and 4. And I'm okay with talking in depth about them, but I'm not really ready to put them down on paper and define them, because I feel like what you're going to end up doing is just rewriting them as new rules are unfolding. So as the executive order came out that allows manufacturing to go back, there's a whole long list of the things that are required. And I'm looking at those and going, oh, okay, those are, some of those things we had in there, but not everything. Those are all good ways for us to determine what those future phases are going to look like and what those requirements are going to be. So I do know that some of those other libraries were reporting, I feel, more fearfulness from their staff. And I think some of that may have to do with they're not ready to talk about the public being in the building. And to be perfectly honest, I'm okay with letting us talk about how we're going to do getting the staff back in the building first and getting that curbside implemented before we start talking about having the public back in the building. I think the best thing that we can do is once that staff's back in the building, we'll be able to see what are the trouble spots and how we're going to be able to address those. One of the first things that I noticed when I was trying to write all this is that doing it from my guest room is almost impossible. And so I did go in one day and I started looking around the building and taking some measurements, and it became a lot clearer that this is an all hands on deck kind of decision, that people have to be able to look at it, measure it. The people who are actually doing the work need to be able to give input. So for example, I was out there measuring the information desk. So between where the two people sit is less than 6 feet. So our information desk just went from being a 2-person station to being a 1-person station. Well, now you've got this big U-shaped desk, and if we decide we want to put up plexiglass shields to protect the staff, where exactly do we put those shields? Because now you've got patrons who can come at one person from 3 different sides. So those are all things that can't be solved sitting in our homes, looking at our computers. Those are all things that we have to look at and talk about and figure out how we're going to address those things. But I have to be able to get the staff back in the
That's why every
building.
library is going to be different, because
Yep.
their desks will be situated differently, different access points.
Yep.
So, it's one thing to have general guidelines, but every circumstance is going to be a little bit different.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And now we have already authorized 5,000. Can we use some of that for this project?
We actually have. We've focused primarily on getting key things in place first. So we have purchased masks for the staff. So we have fabric masks and we also have disposable masks. So there will be choices. We're going to issue a fabric mask to everyone. We have them for the staff. We have them for the board as well. And then we have the disposable ones that are sort of the backup that we have in place in case somebody were to forget their mask or whatever. We've got backup masks in place. We've been purchasing hand sanitizer. That was a lot more challenging than people realized it was going to be, but we just, that arrived today. We had some. Arlene does a great job of keeping us stocked with everything that we need. So we were in pretty good shape, but we were not ready to reopen with enough hand sanitizer for the level of cleaning that we wanted to be able to do. And so she ordered several gallons of hand sanitizer.
Wow. Yeah.
And that was delivered today. So those are primary things. In terms of the plexiglass shields, we've done some shopping and we've kind of got some things picked out that we like, but we've set them aside and we're sort of waiting to order them until we're sure that that's what we need based on how we think the traffic flow is going to happen. So we're not going to execute those quite yet. If I thought it was something we wouldn't be able to get, I would go ahead and do it, but there are a number of companies that produce those. So I think we're going to be okay. The one thing that I think is going to be challenging is the moment that the state said, you're going to be taking the temperature of every single employee that comes in the building, you cannot get a contact-free thermometer to save your life. So,
no kidding. Yeah.
So that's
No
the one
kidding.
thing that, and it does say right in the executive order when those thermometers are available. So even they know you can't get them. So,
Oh boy.
yeah.
Hmm.
So we're just gonna have to wait for production to catch up on that. Masks, when I first started looking at them to order, they were very difficult to get. Now everybody's got masks, so.
Good.
Right, and the production, they'll up production on the thermometers. And
Absolutely, absolutely. And this hand sanitizer is really interesting. The libraries have been, that's one of the nice things about having all these weekly meetings. We have discovered that distilleries are now creating
Yeah.
hand sanitizer. Yeah, and so the problem is the distilleries are not able to ship it because it's flammable and they don't have the licensing to do that. But we found a great company down in Detroit that specializes in that, and they have upped their production, and they are using the World Health Organization formula. So it's a liquid hand sanitizer that is 80% alcohol, so it's even a higher content, which is also good for like your touch screens, like our self-checks and things like that. You can use that on there because it's such a high alcohol content that it evaporates quickly and does not risk your electronic devices.
Good.
So we were glad that we waited a little bit. I think we got the best product for that by waiting a little bit. So it's a little bit of a guessing game. Do you order it right away, or do you wait a little bit and see if you can find something a little bit better that will work better as they figure out what the formula needs to be. So the next document that you have in your packet is that spreadsheet that I referred to. And it's a big, long spreadsheet, but essentially what it does is it lays out, for example, the safety guidelines are stay at home, social distance of 6 feet, face masks in public, gathering capacity limits, temperature checks, COVID-19 testing. And so, it lists these various things that we think we might need to be doing. And then across we have the stay home, stay safe, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. And in each phase you indicate which of these things would need to be done in these various phases, with the goal being the whole world is hoping to get to a point where we no longer need to do COVID testing at all. But, maybe that shows up in the stay home, stay safe, and in phase 1 and phase 2. We don't know yet. But as we make these decisions, we can mark these and be able to list them. So for example, the next one is supplies needed to operate. Soap, hand sanitizer, cloth face masks, disposable face masks, disposable gloves, keyboard covers, mouse covers, disinfectant wipes, face shields, plexiglass shields, touch-free thermometers, all those various things, and what phases might still require these various things in order to be fitting into that phase. People allowed in the building. So essential staff, library staff, delivery and service personnel, volunteers like the Friends, volunteers that are just general. At what points do we let these various people into the building, and when does the general public enter? And so those are the decisions we will be making and filling in this grid as we go. So right now I have the stay home, stay safe. Obviously we know how to do that. We've been doing that for weeks. The return to work, I have most of it filled out. There's still a few things that we're figuring out. One of the things that we're still figuring out is that public access spaces. So right now it says that they're not available. Obviously they're not available to the staff. What we anticipate doing is when we bring some of the staff back into the building, we may have, in order to create more social distancing, because we all know our workspace is really, really tight, that we might reassign people to these various public areas to work. So for example, Tracy would like to have the meeting room designated as sort of a studio for them to record programs, and that we would set that up. So then this grid would indicate that during the phase 1 return to work stage, that we would be using the community meeting room as a studio for programming so that we can record programming. So those are the kinds of things that we're looking at and making sure that we'll be able to do. All make sense?
Yeah, very clear.
It does. I think that the level of plant work that's going into all of this planning is impressive.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
It's a complicated process because we're completely reworking what we're doing. So doing it all in a brand new way.
Yeah,
But
all new.
you and the staff have shown just, I think, a lot of flexibility and a lot of creativity in how you're dealing with all of this. And
We're pleased.
I'm very
Yeah.
proud of the staff. They've been incredibly resilient. They've done everything I've asked of them and more. And I think they've been very patient. They know this is hard for not only for them, but also for me, because this is I'm trying to figure this out as I go, and they have tons and tons of questions, and they know that we've got their backs, and we're doing the best we can with the information that we have. So,
Good.
but we're not going to try and execute anything until we feel like we've got enough information to make sure that the decisions are safe. So.
No, I mean, we want to keep everyone safe, the staff and the community. I think that's got to be the top priority.
Absolutely.
You know, so, but I just, every time I look on Facebook and I see this program or this, we're going to do this, I'm continually impressed by how well y'all are doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons that I think they're having an easier time is that I have their energies really focused on what they can do right now, and I'm trying to let them not worry so much about what happens when we try to get the public back in the building. We want to get the public back in the building, but we're just not ready yet, and it's not because we're not ready yet, it's because the entire world isn't ready yet.
Right.
And so I'm trying really hard to allow them to put their energies toward what we can do, and leave those other pieces for us to figure out. And the time hopefully will come soon when we can at least do some of them.
Yeah, everything will fall into place, once you kind of start doing this. Okay.
Yep. Any other questions about any of that?
No. I don't believe that at the moment. I think this is discussion. We do not need a vote on this. This is a informational discussion about how we're proceeding. And I think we're all in agreement that we're proceeding carefully.
If you have any input, anything that you see that you feel that we've overlooked, or anything that you have questions about that you think we need to address more clearly, or that would be helpful if you see things in there that you're concerned about. And if you don't notice them till later, obviously feel free to call or text or email me and we'll work them in. I do meet with department heads every week, and we have a meeting tomorrow. And so a lot of the things that we're talking about tonight, a lot of the things that you're seeing will be elaborated on again tomorrow, which is why I thought this timing was nice. Because this is the draft that we did this past week, and now tomorrow we're going to take it another step further and start talking about detailed procedures, which I'll talk a little bit more as we talk about phase one, because as I said, we're laser focused on phase one right now.
Yes, and the further procedures that you've laid out that you're going to be discussing look very clear, especially when we're talking about contact-free curbside service. It looks like everyone is really thinking through the process of how to keep that safe for everyone involved.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So are we ready to go on to phase one?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Okay. Take a deep breath. Okay. So in terms of this return to work plan, the preparations for staff to return to work, obviously the first thing that we're thinking about are signs, masks, gloves, additional hand sanitizer stations. All that will be implemented. Staff will review training materials on safe workplace procedures. That's what we're doing with those emails. The IT department is creating a web page for the staff where all of that will be compiled. So if anybody misses an email, they can go back and see everything. So we're working on that. We're going to focus on 6 basic guidelines for staying healthy at work. Number 1 is stay home if you're sick. Number 2 is wear your face mask. Number 3 is wash your hands frequently. Number 4 is don't touch your face. Number 5 is maintain 6 feet of social distance. Number 6 is clean frequently, touch surfaces often. And staff workplaces will be reconfigured to allow for physical distancing. Since the public will not be in the building, staff may be assigned to a workspace. It won't normally be a public area. So this is the basic background of it, but behind the scenes, I've got piles of signage and I've got lists of where they all go and where we're putting various things. So this is your summary version, but there's a much more detailed version, obviously, spread out all over my guest room right now.
I think the 6 feet of social distancing is going to be the most difficult to maintain.
I think so. I'm not real worried about it in the beginning because our first stage is to bring back some of the staff, not all of the staff, and to not have everybody working in their normal workspaces. So, for example, we had talked about having the children's department move their desks, basically with their workspaces, into the children's department. There's no public, so somebody can be in the youth activities room, somebody can be over by the windows, somebody can, Tracy can stay in her office. We can kind of spread them out, but there's a door between Tracy's office and the children's area, so they can still talk and meet up and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
We also have our conference room, we have study rooms, we have the business center, so each one of those could potentially be an office. So we've got the ability to really spread people out, and that's that checklist, that spreadsheet is where we would start to define who goes where and that sort of
That's
thing.
good.
It's going to be a little more complicated the point at which we start allowing the public back in the building. We have to figure out where we're going to put people.
Yes.
Figure it out.
Wow.
I'll figure it out by then. I got time.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
But then the next challenge becomes compliance, because as anybody who's watched the news knows, people think that they don't have to do whatever
Yep.
keeps everyone else safe.
Yeah.
That's very, very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yes.
I suspect because of the way the governor is handling these places of public accommodation, I'm not real concerned that she's going to even allow us to let the public in. I think we're going to be ready before she's ready for us to do it. I think
Okay.
as a staff, I think once we get back in the building and we start to see how it's going to work, and as people start to get out and see how stores are doing it and things like that, I think people are going to start to feel a little more comfortable as we start to, once they see what the cleaning procedures are going to look like, once they see the various details. But we have to start out with just a few people in the building, and we add a few more, and we add a few more. Then we can talk about the public.
Right.
In terms of monitoring staff health, staff members should monitor their health and stay home if they are sick. That's a very basic one. Part of the reason that one is still so basic is because there are 2 or 3 really good sets of guidelines, and I need to compile them and consolidate them and make one that works for us. So Oakland County has a great one. The CDC has a great one. And then, of course, the executive order that came out has a nice long list of requirements that are meant for manufacturing. And Arlene and I were just discussing that one this afternoon and talking about if you're in a situation where you can't maintain even 3 feet of social distance, you have to have face shields. And so we were talking about those kinds of things and how to make that work in our situation. Exactly. So that one's not real specific yet. But in terms of monitoring, they are requiring that you check people as they come in the door and the contact-free thermometers and ask them a list of questions and do you have these symptoms? And the question is going to become whether or not we document that, because there are HIPAA restrictions to that, to saying, okay, you've told me all this information and now I'm going to check it all off and now I'm going to file it. And so that's the meeting tomorrow with the attorney. To try and figure out.
Well, that does get really tricky. Now, I have to tell you, I was in a medical facility the other day, and even at the medical facility, they asked me the questions.
Yep.
They did not take my temperature.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But Bob and I were in the Clarkston Medical Group facility, and they did take your temperature, but they didn't really monitor wearing a face mask. They were all wearing face masks, and almost, I would say 98% of the people were wearing face masks, but there were a couple clients, patients, whatever, who were not.
You know, we went into the St. Joe's Medical Building, and I think they did take our temperature, and they gave us we had masks on, but they preferred that we use their medical grade masks. So we traded masks and put theirs on.
Yeah.
But later we were at the University of Michigan, and now I don't know what happened when he went in. I wasn't supposed to go in, except that we were there most of the day and I had to use the bathroom. And they knew that's the only reason I was coming in, but I still had to enter the building to do that.
Right.
And they did ask me, did I have any symptoms, but they did not take my temperature or really go into depth. I was surprised.
The thing they're really focusing on that I'm hearing when I'm going to these meetings is social distancing is still key. The face masks are all about keeping your germs to yourself.
Right.
So they want people to wear those face masks. The other thing is that if you are carrying any germs, it's also keeping those germs off of your surfaces. So, in terms of those high-touch surfaces, it's making it a little bit easier to keep them clean. But they're saying social distance at 6 feet is still number one what you want to be doing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and at St. Joe's at the medical, when in the waiting room, the chairs were all 6 feet apart. You could tell they'd measured and everything was, and they were only letting there were, besides staff people, I think there were only 3 or 4 patients in the office at all, but it was all kind of strange, and they were following people around, wiping off surfaces.
That's good.
Yeah.
All
was very good.
conversations that we've been having, yeah. Arlene and I had a long conversation about rearranging the
We wanted to
furniture.
wipe off the ink pen, and she said, oh, she wipes the pen off after everybody that used it, and then I watched her do it. She would run up and grab the ink pen and the counter, and so, okay, they
Yeah.
got it under control.
Yeah. Indeed. So in terms of cleaning, returned items will be quarantined for at least 24 hours before being disinfected and shelved. Public and staff areas will be cleaned routinely and often throughout the day with disinfectant, with attention to high-touch surfaces. Restrooms, both staff and public, will be cleaned several times per day. Staff will be instructed in cleaning checklist for their workspace. So one of the things, so that's a very brief version, but Arlene is working on the expanded version on what that cleaning all looks like. One of the specifics that we're doing, and the conversation that the department heads and I had, was that it is not fair for us to expect our custodial staff to run around behind us wiping everything. And so one of the things that we're doing is creating a checklist of what you need to do to your workstation when you walk away from it. So, you know, you're in charge of your own computer screen, your own telephone, your own mouse, and all of those kinds of things, and that you should clean them before
That's
you walk
fair.
away from them.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's right.
Yep. So we're talking about that. And also anything else, Arlene is making, bless Arlene, she's incredibly organized and she's very detail oriented. And she's creating lists of what her team will be doing and what she's going to expect the rest of the staff to help them with in order for them to be able to keep up, because there's only 3 of them and there's 48 of us total. So, and there's 20,000 square feet of building. So in order to be able to do this well, she's helping to create these lists, and you'll see that in one of those training emails where there will be an explanation of what it is that's entailed as part of your cleaning responsibilities, being an in-building employee. So.
Okay.
In terms of library services will continue to be virtual. Phones will be answered during specific hours. One phone operator will answer the main phone line in-house and forward all calls to circulation, information, or individuals as appropriate. Information calls may still be answered remotely, with the phone operator alternating calls between 2 librarians assigned to handle calls at any given time. Items that need to be pulled from the shelves because of information calls can be done by circulation page staff by communicating with librarians through chat. An online library card application and issuing will continue. So this, I think, we worked really hard on this, and I think this is, what we're doing right now is a remote call. So when you call that 2212 number, we have people that are assigned to answer the phones at that time, and the phone automatically forwards to a specific number. We've got actually 4 phone numbers that you can call. There's 2 circulation numbers and 2 information numbers. If you call one of those circulation numbers and you actually need to talk to a librarian, those people are able to then forward the call on to someone else. What we will be able to do in this situation, once we have a phone operator in the building, it will be much easier. That person will act almost like the hostess in a restaurant. You know, in a restaurant, you've got a section and you've got waitresses who each have tables.
Right.
And when they seat you, they rotate through so that each waitress gets the same number of tables. Well, we would be doing something similar with the phone. So we would have a phone operator who would pick up those calls and not answer any questions. Say, thank you for calling the Clarkston Independent District Library. How may I direct your call? And would immediately push it out to circulation, information, or individuals. And if it's a circulation or information question, you would alternate between 2 different people answering phones to assure that there's somebody picking it up every time, and that they're getting equal number of calls. So that right now what happens is a lot of people call that 2212 number, and the one person answering the phone is answering most of the phone calls. So in order to do that, we need that the phone operator to, old-fashioned concept, Debbie understands all about that one, but to be that person who's like the train yard, you know, making sure
Yes.
everything goes where it's supposed to go. So so anyway, we think that's going to be the way to solve that problem and still allow for some people to work from home, because a lot of those information questions can be answered remotely. It's the pulling the materials off the shelves that's an issue, but because we have this chat service now, they can use online chat to communicate with circulation, who can then send somebody to the shelf to pull the books off the shelf. So we can still have people working from home and from the building.
Okay.
Curbside service, when permitted, we would have contract-free curbside service. Materials will be requested through online or phone request, checked out to the patron, bagged and staged in the lobby for pickup. We are looking at scheduling software, and the circulation staff will have a cell number that patrons can call or text to let staff know when they've arrived for pickup. And we are actually looking at outside book lockers. They're pretty expensive, and we're not sure exactly where we would put them.
Right.
So this would be our primary way. The nice thing about the book lockers is they're available 24/7, but they are pretty expensive, and we're not sure where we would put them. So we're investigating. We're looking at different options, but curbside is the way we would like to go.
The lockers might be a good thing for people who are, for those essential workers who might not be able to come to the library to pick up things during what would be our new normal hours.
Yep, definitely.
So, but that's something that we'll have to kind of weigh.
An
Well,
interesting
the progress is going.
Yeah,
An
and
interesting,
look at the pros and cons of that, so.
an interesting conversation we've been having about hours. It is nice to have that shorter amount of time. Part of the reason we have the 10 to 6 hours is because it allows for the programming of the phones to be a little more simplified instead of it being, we have 2 4-hour shifts, and it makes it easy to control that. Once we have somebody back in the building who's actually the phone operator, it would make it a little bit easier to forward those calls and that kind of thing. There's a lot of conversation going on with library directors right now. Do you have shortened hours to make it easier to offer these services uniformly? Or do you have full hours because it allows you to spread your staff out more, because you've got more hours during which to have people in the building, so you don't have as much overlap of people. So instead of having an 8-hour shift and you've got all these people that are there for the 8 hours, you've got some people working 4-hour shifts in the morning, some people working 4-hour shifts in the evening, some people working all day, and it allows you to better control the number of people in the building. So we're a little bit up in the air about that. One thing that we do have in place is a policy that says that we have to have 2 full-time employees in the building at all times that it is open to the public, but we're not open to the public. So really all we need in order to have proper coverage for full hours would be somebody with a key and the access to the safes and that kind of thing. Would be one person, because the part-time people would be able to help with everything else, since we don't have public in the building. So it makes it a little bit easier. I know there are a lot of people who are like, oh, all this double coverage that we normally have when there's public in the building, but if there's no public in the building, one person can be responsible for the safe and managing all of those other things. So at some point, we'll have to discuss when we go back to full hours. Right now, the staff is hoping that we'll keep the shortened hours because it is a little bit easier to schedule and make things a little more streamlined. But at some point, we will want to go back to our full hours again. So we'll have to figure out when that is. Library programs will continue to be virtual. One of the meeting rooms will be turned into a studio to allow for programs to be created more easily, and staff social distancing will still occur in that situation, which is why they want to use the big meeting room, because it would make it much easier for them. We have a green screen, so they want to be able to put up the green screen and have somebody else run the camera for them. And because that room is so big, it would allow for them to be able to do that and make their story times a little more sophisticated and a little more fun. So they're super excited about being able to do that. In-house versus work from home. Service hours will need to be determined, and an optimum amount of staff will be scheduled. Work will be divided into what must be done in-house and what could be done remotely. In order to minimize the number of people in the building and maximize social distancing, work from home options will continue to be utilized. High-risk staff need to make the best and most responsible decision for themselves on whether they will return to work, and they need to share that decision with their supervisor as soon as possible. Creating a safe environment, serving the public creatively, and keeping staff employed and actively working are our top priorities. Library services and workflows will be different, so staff must be flexible and able to shift job tasks. Tasks that can be done remotely should be assigned to staff who must work remotely as much as possible, because the goal is to make sure that everybody has work to do. And so if you need to work from home, we want to give you work to do from home, and somebody else who's in the building needs to do those building tasks that you can't be there to do. So that's in a nutshell what I'm trying to say there. In terms of volunteers, while volunteers may be able to rejoin the staff in one of the earlier phases of reopening, we're not really including them in phase 1 to allow the staff adequate time to assimilate all these new safety protocols. The staff can't train volunteers how to do safety protocols if they aren't completely comfortable with them yet. So we could potentially decide to bring volunteers in partway through phase 1 if we wanted to, but at the very beginning of phase 1, I would say no, because we need to be 100% confident in what we're doing. And then book donations, while it is not possible to prevent donated books from being dropped off, book donations will be discouraged until we're able to have Friends volunteers present to manage and sort all of that.
Since there's a lot there.
There's a lot there. There is a lot there. And stuff's been coming in the book drop. So, yeah. And the Friends are working on how to do a book sale. They've got some very clever ideas of things that they would like to do. So I'm pleased with that. And they have a meeting on Thursday. So we'll have another conversation with that. And then we have preparations for gradual reentry of the public. Once the staff is returned to the library, the building will be ready for gradual reopening to the public as we're confident doing that. And then that last piece that I have is an expanded procedure for that contact-free curbside service. And the reason that I have that in your packet specifically, it is procedural, and board doesn't usually approve procedural things, but I think it's important for you to see when we say contact-free, we took that very much to heart. We went round and round about different ways to do this. We looked at best practices of what restaurants and businesses that are currently in business are doing. So we started out with stopping the automatic notifications while we're doing curbside deliveries. The patrons can place a hold via the website or call into the library to pick out their materials. If a call comes in and the librarian chooses items for the patron, it would go through circulation, who would check it out and bag it. In that situation, information will tell the patron to wait for a call from circulation to know that their items are ready to be picked up. So that would be procedurally how we would handle that. Circulation will print the hold list, pull items, check them out to the patron, staple the bag closed with a due date receipt, and put the patron's name on the bag. There will be no limit to the number of items a person can request it at one time. Circulation will be in charge of scheduling the pickup times. The bag will go into the lobby area on tables sorted alphabetically by last name. Bags will be marked with the last 4 digits of library card number to provide a method for verifying the patron. If the patron has multiple bags, they will be marked 1 of 3, 2 of 3, 3 of 3, etc. So we don't miss any. We borrowed that from how they do carry out bags in restaurants. The lobby doors will stay locked to prevent patrons from entering the building. There will be a designated spot out front for the patron to park and wait for their items. If it gets really busy, we may end up doing numbered parking spots, but we're not sure how that's going to go. So we're going to start with 1 spot and see how it goes. There will be a sign at that spot giving the patrons a phone number that they can call or text to let circulation know that they are at the library. Patrons will be instructed to either open their trunk or roll down their window and stay in their car. Circulation will be wearing gloves and masks and will deliver the items to the car. Circulation will check patron ID or card number before delivery, so they can actually do that through the text or cell call. And in the event that a patron walks to the library or rides a bike, we will check ID using social distancing and then put their bag on the bench for them to pick up. So there's a bench right outside the front door that we would set it there for them. So the items needed to make this work are scheduling software, so the schedule can be accessible to multiple computers, a cell phone designated for hold calls only, brown paper bags, and Sharpie markers. So we feel like we can do this very inexpensively. We've already got the bags priced out. We have the cell phone priced out. We're looking at scheduling software, and that's actually pretty reasonably priced and can allow for as close as 10-minute slots or however we want to do that. So there's a lot of flexibility in the software.
And we have plenty of staples.
We have we do have plenty of staples. We do have plenty of staples.
Okay.
And just to make it more fun, the PR department, so Trevor and Adrian are working to figure out how to brand the bags. So they're either going to get a big rubber stamp with our logo on it or some kind of sticker so that we can brand the bags and make that some,
Yeah.
because we're getting the bags dirt cheap. We've got a great deal on paper grocery bags, which are completely recyclable. And so we feel like we're doing good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Any
Good.
questions or concerns about any of that?
That's a lot of detail. It's wonderful.
I'd say a lot of work has gone into phase one, and I'm
Yes.
pleased that the staff is
I know
participating.
yeah. And all the work that's already been done before we even get started into the phases.
Hmm. Yeah, you're not kidding.
Very good.
So the question at this point, the planning in terms of phase one, the board should approve whatever it is that we're doing. The problem is how you approve the timing, because the timing is at this point completely controlled by executive order. We are closed until May 28th without question. If there's an extension of that, any date that you pick could be overridden. Either the executive order expires or it doesn't. So I guess what I need from the board is how you would like to proceed with determining how you would like to manage that part.
Couldn't you just have it so many days or so many weeks after the order is given that you can do it, provide the service? Within 5 days of the executive order granting you the service, make it pretty open-ended.
I mean, are you thinking?
Would we even be, I could be even be a little vaguer when the executive order is lifted, we approve the introduction of phase one.
Mhm.
You could do that.
Do we want to put a caveat on that if for some reason Julie and the staff don't feel that they're ready to start phase one right at the moment that the governor says that they can, do we want to add something that says, at such time as the executive order allows and staff feels confident that they're ready to
Implement?
go into phase one?
I think that's good. I think that's a good idea.
Well, I think we
Okay,
should
so
have
wait.
an idea of some date in mind, like perhaps June 2nd. Would Julie's team be ready by June 2nd? And would you be able to target that date, whether or not it opens?
I think so. Part of what was kind of a stumper for me is that the executive order is set to expire on the 28th.
Right.
And what we're seeing that she does traditionally is the Thursday before the executive order is set to expire, she makes a change. Which works great because that's the Library of Michigan weekly directors meeting is on Friday. So Friday we figure out what she said the night before and figure out what we're supposed to do. So I anticipate if she follows what she's been doing, the order is set to expire on Thursday the 28th, and I suspect by Thursday the 21st or Friday the 22nd, we will know what her thinking is in terms of whether or not it's going to be extended. Your next board meeting is set for June 8th. Interestingly, it expires on a Thursday. I really think because we're 3 weeks out and we're busily working on the details for procedures, I think we would be able to, if she were to allow the order to expire on the 28th, I suspect we would know the week before. And I suspect that we would be potentially ready to bring some staff back to the building on Monday the 1st and potentially implement curbside by then. Because Annette's got it all figured out in terms of.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Would you, are you feel comfortable being ready, whether or not that order is expired?
I do, because I feel we've still got 3 weeks to go and we've been working really hard on the details. I don't think we're ready today, but we've got so many pieces that are coming together that I think we would be ready I think
To
we would be ready by
implement-
June 1st.
To implement phase one, is that what we're saying?
Right.
Well,
Phase one.
but could phase one be only, if she still does not allow the building to be open, if that part gets extended, but she says, based on input from the MLA, she says, but, like many retailers are doing, libraries can now provide curbside pickup. So we would be ready to move on that even before we really went fully into phase one.
My thinking about what could happen, I potentially see that she might say that we could go back to work, but that we couldn't do curbside. Which is why I wrote phase one that says basically when she allows us to go back to work, we will go back to work and continue doing exactly what we're doing now with a little bit easier way of doing it because we will have a lot more resources, not just the stuff that's on your bookcase at home and your home computer and your cell phone, but you'll have, you know, the resources of the building and the meeting room to do story times and things like that. But that curbside might not be allowed right away. So that's why I wrote it that way. And then we would start curbside as soon as she would allow it.
Okay.
Well, according to your comments on phases of library service, that's all included in phase one.
Well,
So
essentially
your paragraph on that, which says, you know, just what we would say, we would bring the staff back, contact-free curbside library material pickup would be added when allowed.
Mm-hmm.
So we could implement phase one without putting a specific date on it.
And that's why I put that curbside when allowed, because I anticipate that she will let us go back to the building before she will let us have curbside.
Okay, is anybody's mind working on a motion?
Okay, so what we're looking for then is simply a motion to, saying that at such time as the executive order allows, that staff will begin implementing phase one.
That sounds good. Not put the dates on it, but allow some changes that might.
Right, I mean, there's nothing we can do until the governor says that we can. So.
You want me to read that back to you, Jan?
Yes.
Yeah.
As such time as executive order allows, staff will begin implementing stage one.
I like that. I like that it's implementing. It's not will implement. It's not a dictate. It's will begin to.
No, because it can be implemented. It could be implemented step by step by step at the judgment of staff, because they're the ones that are going to be doing it. You know, Julie has to know what everybody's ready for and capable of, and if we take baby steps, then we take baby steps. That's fine, but if what we need is direction, yes, you know, please get moving as soon as we can. I miss my library.
Yes. We do too, and we miss our patrons. We desperately miss our patrons, but we know that if we open too soon, people will be tempted to gather. And
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and you know, and we don't want the library to become the next hotspot, please.
Nope.
So yes, it has to be done cautiously, but if you feel like the staff is going to be ready, if in fact she says yes, the 28th is fine, and if you feel it by Monday the 1st, then I'm comfortable with that. Leaving, yes, let's get going when we can, but it doesn't have to be the full blown. Just begin implementation of phase one.
Okay, let's hear that motion again so we can get a second.
At such time as executive orders allow, staff will begin implementing stage one.
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that. Julie, would you please read that again?
At such time as executive orders allow, staff will begin implementing stage one, or phase one, I'm sorry, phase one.
Okay, any comments or questions?
Yeah, Debbie has a question.
Oh, can you unmute her, Tim? Thanks.
Daphne was one, and who is the second one?
Who seconded it?
Nancy.
I had Nancy.
Nancy, okay, thank you.
I have a
Sorry.
question. Julie, are the staff looking forward to moving into phase one?
Depends on which ones you ask. I think most people are, yes. We do have some staff that are in high-risk situations. And those staff members obviously some of them have already let us know which ones, feel that they can't do this, and that's totally fine. These are all the staff, no matter what their situation has been, doing absolutely everything they can, which I think is great. And so those people who feel like they can't come back, we are making lists of tasks that they can do from home so that they can still have work to do and remain employed and that sort of thing. I have some people that are chomping at the bit to get back. I have some people who were frustrated that we had to leave in the first place. They felt like they could continue to work. So we're all over the board. Everybody's all over the board. And sometimes it depends from one day to the next. Some days, the sun is shining and you just want to go back and do your thing. And other days it's dreary and you just want to hide at home and drink cocoa. So, but yes, generally speaking, I get the impression that most of the staff is ready to at least be able to have some people back in the building, some people working from home, and be able to do some curbside so that we can start to get back to some of that normalcy.
Well, I think that as long as they're comfortable that precautions are being taken, that I think that's the key. People that I've talked to that are going back in other sectors, some of them are nervous about it, but others, as long as they feel like the proper precautions are being taken,
Right.
mostly people seem to be okay with it.
I think, first of all, our staff is going to be very compliant in terms of wearing masks. I'm not worried about anybody saying, nope, I'm not going to wear a mask. I just don't feel that that's the staff that we have. I think we've got people that are going to be very compliant about that. We have a crackerjack cleaning crew. Arlene is really on top of it. Her team is really on top of it. And she's making these great lists for us, and she's going to help prepare us to make sure that we're all doing what we need to do. And right now she's trying to figure out, the hand sanitizer that we're getting is liquid, and we had actually a really long conversation today about how many spray bottles of liquid hand sanitizer we need to spread around the building, and to the point where those people who are really concerned might want their own assigned bottle of hand sanitizer with their name on it, and we're good with that. So, so she's trying to figure out what level we need in order to make everybody feel confident. So we're taking it all very seriously.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's good. And I have confidence that in the staff, they have really risen to the occasion so far. And
Yeah.
I think that they will continue to do that. So.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any other questions or concerns? If not, Julie, please call the roll.
Okay, Jan Gaffney,
Yes.
Dan Green,
Yes.
Allison McFadden Kiesling,
Yes.
Nancy Moon,
Yes.
Marilyn Pomeroy,
Yes.
Ann Rose,
Yes.
Christy Schull.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion is passed. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that it won't be too long before we are able to start implementing that.
Yep.
Are there any other concerns that we need to discuss tonight prior to our June 8th meeting? And if not, I'll accept a motion for adjournment.
So move.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Debbie needs
that
to
we
know
adjourn.
who's our second. Jan's the second. Jan Gaffney's second. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I did second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Oh, I'm supposed to do roll call still. Sorry, guys.
Yeah,
Dan Gaffney,
Yes.
I made it almost through the meeting.
Dan Green,
Yes.
Allison McFadden Kiesling,
Yes.
Nancy Moon,
Yes.
Marilyn Pomeroy,
Yes.
Ann Rose,
Yes.
and Crystal.
Yes.
Okay.
You did a great job, Marilyn. That's the first
Yes.
time that you almost forgot.
I
so-
almost made it.
Yes, you did a
The
great
meeting
job.
is adjourned at 7:56.
7:56, okay.